Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Devil Experience. We got the latest Manchester United news updates surrounding the managerial sort of candidate search. I guess Carrick. Few names still the same, but under the reported sort of new update, there might be one or two that seem to be leading that weren't really in maybe the prime position. Two that obviously I think most fans would have taken because of their expertise. Consequently, again, because this has been reported before, but again, being basically labeled as out of contention, not available, not going to happen, pretty much forget about them. It ain't happening. We also do have the latest transfer updates surrounding some players. We actually just got breaking news as well right now, so I will give you that ASAP this second, okay? And it is surrounding Rasmus Højlund, okay? So, give me 2 seconds. So, this just came out literally 20 minutes ago. Fabrizio Romano reporting Giovanni Manna, who is the sporting director of Napoli, said... These are his quotes. Sporting director of Napoli said, "There are no doubts Rasmus Højlund will stay here. We have an obligation to buy him from Manchester United if we qualify for the Champions League, but he is in our plans regardless of that condition," which is a major plus for Manchester United, because obviously we've made the decision to move on from him. We have Benjamin Sesko. Some fans would have liked him for him to get another opportunity. I was sort of in that camp as well, but listen, he's gone there. Napoli like him very much. We need money because we have sort of a major still reconstruction, big rebuild in the midfield that we need to do. And, we got a very important summer transfer window coming up. And I think he's moved on as well. He seems to suit the Italian game a lot better than maybe the Premier League. And, he's happy there. And I think, we've moved on. So it's good. Fabrizio has reported that Napoli will trigger the 44 million euro buy option clause for Rasmus Højlund. Okay, and we also just got another piece of news that just came out 8 minutes ago. So this is about sales right now. And we talked about this once upon a time. Not once upon a time, but like a week or two ago, okay? Because we are looking at sort of what money Manchester United will, probably have. We're trying to do all the calculations to see, if Ineos and I guess the Glazers as well are going to spend the proper amount of money that, we can afford to spend without like destroying ourselves, but without them sort of playing the small violin and saying, well, we would have liked to spend more money, but we couldn't. And then they're really just lying because they want to, sort of penny pinch and do it on the cheap. So Mason Greenwood here, okay? Transfer.com, I don't know about the source, but Transfer.com is reporting that Mason Greenwood is expected to leave Olympique de Marseille this summer for around 90 million euros. I hate how it's in euros, by the way, but anyway, 90 million euros. And as we've talked about before, and as it's pretty much well known, Manchester United hold a 45 to 50% sell-on clause, meaning they could receive roughly half of the transfer fee. And I would go on to say that that we will receive half of the transfer fee because that's what that literally means. I don't know why it was worded like that. I mean, if we have a 45 to 50% sell-on clause, and it was reported 50%, now it's 45 to 50%, but let's just go with, I guess, the 50 because it's easier to deduct. I mean, if he sold for 90 million, okay, we're getting 45 million euros from Mason Greenwood. There's some of our fans that will want him back. I will say, I'm not going to get into that discussion because it's quite divisive, okay? And I don't think there's any need because I don't think Mason Greenwood will come back. One, I don't know if he wants to come back, okay? I think there was a time that maybe he didn't necessarily want to leave, when all of that sort of went down. But like some other players... Okay, and I've said the same thing for like Marcus Rashford and, some others. Okay, they might not, like even Scott McTominay, they might not necessarily want to leave the football club in that moment, But once they do leave, I think they like sort of, come to terms with it and they sort of move on like most people do in life. You might want to not do something. Maybe you're sort of forced into it, or you don't feel so good about it. You end up doing it and then you go, you know what? Actually it's gone all right. And, I'm quite happy. So I don't think Mason Greenwood wants to come back, and I don't think United want him back. So I think these people that still are like, there's some fans out there that are still hoping and, almost begging for Greenwood to come back. And I just find it quite nonsensical. I mean, it's over. It's done. I don't think it's ever happening. I don't see it happening, and so, move on. But in terms of, the future for our squad, positive, very positive, and at least, we're getting a decently good amount of money. I mean, we just talked about we're going to get 44.5 million for Rasmus Højlund, and if he leaves, if Mason Greenwood leaves Marseille for around 90 million, that's about another 45 million. That right there is about, 90 million just from the two players. We're not even including Marcus Rashford, and his sort of, what is it, like 25, 23 million, plus the, plus his wages, plus Rashford's wages, plus Casemiro's wages. So, plus, if we get into Champions League, we'll get the 10 million back from Adidas, but we'll also get money from UEFA itself. And we'll have a good finish in the Premier League, so we'll get more money from the Premier League than we have done in the past 2 seasons in a row, especially last season. So things right now, so to speak, in a certain sense, are in a lot better financial position, I would say, going into this summer transfer window than we were last summer transfer window. We obviously still are $1 billion in debt. We still obviously owe, I believe, some 400 million, I believe it's pounds, on transfers that we have done that we obviously pay, in installments, because that's how transfers are done. The rest of it is the debt that the Glazers, loaded onto the football club, which is probably never going to get paid off, unfortunately. But, it is looking a bit positive in that aspect. But we do sort of have to hold our breath a little bit because, again, the Glazers are still here. And Ineos, are partners with the Glazers. And listen, I think they've done some pretty good business transfer-wise, player profile-wise. All right? And I do expect them to spend money, especially because they spent 0 in January. So if they're going to make up for not spending anything in January, which I think is still a disgrace. I labeled it a disgrace before we even got into January. It's still a disgrace, and it will be a disgrace for the end of time because we should be spending money in January. But if they didn't spend money in January, I fully expect them to spend the money in the summer. Smartly, but we should be spending as much as we can to a degree without setting us so far back, but monumentally improving the squad to make us really strong, because next season is I know we always say this, but like for real, it's a big one because the last 2 seasons have been horrible. Okay, it started with the finishing 8th and being in Europa League, and then it went into finishing 15th, losing Europa League final. Okay, and this season we are in 3rd, okay? And we're going to talk about Villa, all right? We'll do a little bit of a preview. We got a match coming up against Villa. It's a 6-pointer. It's a massive, massive game. We just lost to Newcastle against 10-men Newcastle. We're looking for a response. It's a massive match. And this could be maybe sort of a bit, position defining for us and where we actually finish and how secure we're gonna have our position. So, but this summer is going to be massive because to finish 3rd and get back into Champions League, we need to do everything we can to not go backwards because we can't really afford to go backwards. Okay. The club is in a place where it's basically it's teetering on being just sort of finished off to a certain degree. Okay, because I mean, if you look back over the last 12 years, where we started after post Sir Alex, we couldn't win a Premier League anymore, but we were, just finishing in the top four and getting Champions League. And as time has gone on, we've started to drop a little bit more and a little bit more. And in the past recent times, it's been, we go out of the Champions League, we go into Europa League. And then, we've ended up with no Europe this season, which is not a good sign. So we need to sort of stabilize the club. And if we're ultimately going to go back to winning the Premier League, okay, and ultimately maybe the Champions League at some point, we need to stabilize ourselves as a football club that is consistently finishing in the top four and competing at a high level, and making at least, a push for the Premier League for a substantial amount of time during the season and building on that. So, but Sebastian is here, okay? And Reynoso's here. Sebastian was first one in today. And he had a hectic week. And I had a bit of a busy week as well. Yesterday was the first time I could do a show, in about a week. And we're back here today on a Friday. So I hope everybody is doing good. He won't come back. It's done. Yeah, for Greenwood. Anthony Sancho. Well, Sancho is finished. Sancho's contract is run out. Okay? And he's no longer our issue and our problem. So you are sort of right on that in terms of the wages. Okay? We don't have to... That's sort of been freed up as well. I kind of forget about him because I've already, transferred him out of our club in my mind. He hasn't been a United player since he basically had that bust up with Ten Hag, even though officially on the books, he's still been there. Anthony, I believe we sold him. Did we not? Did that deal not go through permanently? Because there has been no talk, so I believe that we did do a deal. He did. He has permanently joined. Anthony permanently joined Real Betis from Manchester United in September 2025 for a reported 25 million euros, 21.6 million pound package, including a 50% sell-on clause. The 25-year-old winger who initially joined United from Ajax for a disgusting whopping fee of 95 million euros in 2022 left after scoring 12 goals in 96 appearances. I almost want to throw up the food I just ate. Following a successful loan spell at Betis. So, the positive there is, one, we got him out, okay? We lost about 75 million on that deal, okay? And the only good thing is that we have a 50% sell-on clause, and, he's no longer our issue either. So, It is trending in a way, but we do need to secure ourselves. I am a bit worried about sort of this summer window because there's a World Cup and it's going to make it difficult because we've been here before. And Ineos sort of have a massive job because we can't really afford to get it wrong. We need to get it right. If we get it wrong, we're going backwards. And if we go backwards, we're going to lose money. And if we lose money, we're going to fall further behind. And we're not going to be able to compete. We're already struggling to compete in the transfer market with teams that have been more stable with us, that have been better than us over a more longer, consistent period of time, that can sell their project way easier, okay? And another factor that we have is we don't actually know who the manager is, which is sort of a problem right now, because we can do, some pre-summer window work right now, but it is quite difficult to try and sell any project early on, okay, to any player that we would want when we can't give them a definite call on the manager, okay? And that's another thing that's sort of killing us right now because City, Pep ain't going nowhere, at least for the upcoming season. All right? And if he is, then they got somebody else lined up already. You can bet on that for sure. All right? Arsenal, look set to win the Prem. So I would assume Arteta's going to keep his job and not get sacked unless he bottles it. But Arsenal, they'll have their manager. Okay, so they can tell everybody, we got Arteta. He's been here for 6 years. He's going in 7th. You know, look where we're going. Look what we just did. We're set to go. Chelsea, a little bit iffy. Chelsea's an iffy club, okay? And Chelsea's a bit of a mess to a certain degree, all right? And Liverpool, they still have won the Premier League and Champions Leagues in recent times. And, Arne Slot won it last year. Hasn't gone well for him. And maybe, they move and part ways with him, but maybe they stick with him. And still, I mean, if you look at sort of the last, even if you use 5 to 6 years, those clubs have been way more stable than us. So, Rajat's here. What's up, Rajat? Erased him from our memories. LL, great. Yeah. Just out of the club, out of sight, out of mind. They say. So we do have some other updates, okay, and we'll get into the manager discussion in a little bit. But we do have an update again surrounding the midfield, and it is surrounding Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes. Okay, and this came from Mark Ogden, who said Sandro Tonali and Bruno Guimaraes would both be of interest if they were to become available. But there is an acceptance at Old Trafford that Newcastle would make it almost impossible to negotiate a sensible financial deal for either midfielder. And, I think there is truth to that in terms of, I don't really understand this whole situation, though, because, again, if you don't want them to go, and I think it is maybe a bit of a hard deal for Manchester United to do, because, again, I don't know, maybe we spend really big on one guy, and the other ones maybe, much more less, and we do it in that way. But considering that we have been teetering with financial problems and, we've been cutting costs and all this stuff, all right, and we haven't been as stable as the other clubs that I just mentioned, okay, it's much easier for Liverpool to go and, be able to pull a deal like this, like they did with Alexander Isak, okay? Alexander Isak, Newcastle made it very difficult for them. They were very unwilling. Liverpool won in the end, but they paid a big price. I don't know if United can actually do that. I don't know if the United can actually afford to do that in terms of would it damage the rest of sort of the transfer plan? Because they have, Liverpool and City and even Arsenal, they sort of have wiggle room in that department. They can spend large amounts of money. Their teams are a lot more secure in a way, and even their club is a lot more secure financially in a way, so they can splurge big, and they can do sort of this, transfer battle, I guess it would be, and ultimately they could win those out. We could probably get, sort of priced out of it, and also Ineos hasn't really, I mean, they've shown a bit of an increase since they come in, because in the beginning they did go more on the cheaper side, and last summer, we did go a bit higher than the previous summer window, so maybe they do it again if it allows us. But I do think it is a bit quite difficult to do something there, but the club should try, okay, and we should be going in for it, and we should try our best to negotiate a deal, because you just never know. Although, we've experienced, Newcastle didn't make it very easy for us to get, what's his name? Our director of football that we fired. I always forget his name. But they didn't make it easy for us to get him. They didn't make it easy for Liverpool to get him. So I wouldn't expect it to be easy to get Bruno Guimaraes or Sandro Tonali. Either. So we might have to kind of forget about those guys, because those deals just might be too difficult and too complicated and too time consuming. Okay. And that's another factor that we have to, sort of pay attention to, is the time, because again, the World Cup will impact, the window, and there is going to be a short time. for transfers to materialize. To everybody wants them in before preseason, and you know what? This year is probably the year where I have some leniency on that and say it's not going to happen, and I can understand how it's not going to happen because, I mean, Tonali, I believe it. I mean, like, some of these guys might not be in the World Cup, but like, Bruno Guimaraes is definitely going to be in the World Cup. So to get him in, even if you transfer him in, he's still going to need time off after the World Cup. Like, he's still going to need, about a 2-week break. A lot of our players are going to be the same. Bruno will be one of them for sure because he's going to be in Portugal. They're expected to go far in the competition, okay? When we start preseason, Bruno and some others, maybe even Delo and a couple others, they won't even be involved in the beginning stages of the preseason. They might make it for the end of the preseason. So, Man United bring us Fede Valverde. That's never happening. Don't bring us Tonali, bro. Let's not do that deal. No. Why not? Why not? Tonali is an excellent player. Tonali is an excellent player, and so is Bruno Guimaraes. They can definitely play in the Premier League. They've proved that. They have the qualities. They have the physical attributes to handle week in, week out Premier League teams, and that's what we need. And I think it's going to be extremely difficult to do those deals. So, I feel like they're less likely to happen. But, I mean, we'll see. There is a giant list of midfield options available. It's going to be interesting to see what we end up with. I just hope, if we were to rank them from order, okay, and maybe there's about 8 to 10. All right. There's 8 to 10 on this list. I hope we don't end up with 9 and 10. Because if we end up with 9 and 10, that's going to be quite a demoralizing, shitty feeling, okay? That we end up with literally the bottom 2 options, okay? So, but Mark Ogden also did say, and we did talk about this on the show a couple times, all right? The decision to not offer Casemiro a new contract when his existing deal expires this summer was no surprise. But there's an acceptance within the club that the 34-year-old's exit will leave a significant hole in terms of experience, but also his ability to score important goals. And I've talked about this, and we've talked about this, and we've said this, and I've said this quite a lot. No matter who we get, whether it's Wharton, Elliot Anderson, Tonali, Bruno Guimaraes, whatever you want to name it, okay, that there is an aspect to Casemiro's game that we are not going to be able to replace in the incoming season. And we're going to have to try and fill the hole in a different way because they don't have the level of experience that Cass has, okay? And they don't, again, Cass is, he's had a phenomenal career. And he is just one of those one-of-a-kind type of players, okay? And it's very hard to get somebody to fill his role. So whoever comes in, they're going to have to bring something different that adds something different, that lessens the blow to Casemiro and what he gives us. And they're going to have to uplift us. It may be something that Casemiro is lacking, okay? Legs in particularly, but something else on top of that so that we can sort of fill the gap a bit. I still think we're going to feel a bit of pain there, no matter who we get, no matter who it is. I think we'll feel a bit of pain. And it's going to be a bit of a growing pain and an adjustment period, especially for these guys and these players that come in to Manchester United, because we've sort of seen that with players before, and it's very unusual, okay, for players to come and sort of hit the ground running. Especially at Manchester United. Now, it might help a bit if they are in the Premier League and they've played in the Premier League and we get them from a Premier League team. We've seen sort of like Cunha and Mbeumo adjusted quite more quickly than the likes of maybe like a Sesko or maybe somebody like an Ugarte who doesn't seem to have like adjusted well or isn't proper for the Premier League, or some other or some other players that we've gotten in from outside that just never were the right fit, or for United specifically, but also for the Premier League football. So, Rajat says go get Stiller and Wharton. That's probably going to be the best too. Listen, I don't know if it is the best too. I don't know. I think United right now are definitely going for Elliot Anderson. And they're going to try and battle Manchester City for it. And I think that will dictate what happens following suit on that and how much we pay if we end up getting him. If we end up losing out on him, then it's sort of divert the plan to, plan B, C, D, E, F, and G. Because the stories, the updates, it does seem like Elliot Anderson is taking primary pole position. Okay, Baleba was once upon a time there, but again, I think Baleba gets pushed down specifically because there might not be as much interest in him as, per se, let's say Elliot Anderson or some other targets. And we don't necessarily have to do that deal immediately, especially if he's willing to join Manchester United in the same manner that Cunha was willing to join Manchester United, or that Mbeumo was willing to join Manchester United. So we'll see how that goes. Speaking on Mbeumo, real quick, okay, this came from The Sun, which, is nobody's favorite place to really get a piece of news from. But I thought it was a bit interesting because we actually mentioned this on the show. And some people have been saying that, there was this discussion about a couple weeks ago that we were having that Mbeumo needs to be rested, or that he should be rested. He didn't have he had a very poor game against Newcastle, and he sort of dipped a bit in form a little bit, okay, prior to that. And, some of our members were saying that they would drop Mbeumo, rest him because he needs rest. And I sort of hit back on that, and I was saying that, well, I would be a bit concerned if Bryan Mbeumo needs rest, because we are playing one match a week, and we've played the least amount of football in a season that we've ever played. And I'm concerned because if he needs to be rested in this scenario, what happens next season? Because we all rate Mbeumo. He's done well for large periods of the season. He's scored important goals. He's performed well at times, okay? And he's been a good signing so far. But he is a player that obviously for next season, we would be looking for him to be somebody that we can lean on and rely on and play and start the majority of the games next season. And we're going to be playing 2 to 3 matches a week. And we're going to be playing high-level, high-quality teams when we go into the Champions League. And if he needs rest now, well, how is he going to survive next season? Because we're going to need him. Like, look at the other teams. Like Mohamed Salah for Liverpool has been that important of a player throughout his time there, okay? If he's playing. He's playing. He's playing as much as possible, almost in every game possible, okay? Maybe some of the smaller games, they play a small team in the Carabao Cup, they rotate him out, they give him a rest. But otherwise, if it's an important game, he's playing. The same would apply for Mbeumo. But if Mbeumo doesn't have the fitness for it, it's going to be a bit of a problem. And we're going to be a bit in trouble. And this sort of story came out saying that Brentford sources claims Bryan Mbeumo could find it a challenge to play 2 or 3 games per week. And I did sort of hit on this at that time when we were having that conversation. And I was saying, well, there could be that aspect and that possibility because he was playing for Brentford. And Brentford does not play 2 to 3 matches per week. And he's not really used to that, is he? He's not really used to that. And it seems like he's got a bit of fatigue, okay? He went to the AFCON. He played in AFCON, all right, which was, I guess, the extra matches. And he played basically all our matches. And he played a lot of 90 minutes. He starts every match, okay? And he seems like he's a bit fatigued on that end because he wasn't that sharp. So, and I kind of agree with this because I was saying that, I could see an aspect there of how he might not be able, or he might find it a challenge to play 2 to 3 games a week because his body is probably not used to it because he played for Brentford, and Brentford play about 1 match a week, and that's what he's been doing. And even prior to Brentford, that's probably what he was doing. So he's not a player that has been sort of, it's not like he came from a team that was already playing Champions League football and is used to, he's done a couple of seasons where he plays 2 to 3 times a week and plays these high intensity matches against high quality teams. So, I think the only thing that we could really do about it is that we need to give him some sort of a, preseason sort of program to build that fitness up to get him ready. Otherwise, we're going to be in a bit of trouble next season because if he can't handle that, there's always a potential that he suffers some sort of an injury due to fatigue, or we'll see him play like how we maybe saw him play against Newcastle, and he just won't look sharp and he'll look off of it, which we can't really afford because we need him to be firing on all cylinders, just like Cunha and just like Sesko and everybody else on the team. And we can't really afford that to happen. So I'm a bit concerned about that aspect, and I guess we got to keep one eye on that, and we got to see, how I guess Mbeumo looks showing up into next season, and see, what kind of shape he's in, and see how he starts the season. Maybe he'll look more fit. Not that he's unfit, but what I'm saying is you could definitely get more fit. You can always get more fit. Cristiano Ronaldo is probably somebody that everybody would say he's probably the fittest, and he would tell you I could get fitter. So you could always get more fit. You could always build more into that. So we do gotta sort of keep an eye on that, okay? But moving on, all right, because those were sort of small updates, all right, and we'll talk a little bit more about Mbeumo when we talk about Aston Villa in about a few minutes from now. But there is sort of this manager update, okay? So I do want to do the manager update. All right, and there's a couple pieces on the manager update. Number one, for the manager update, Mark Ogden again, saying Carrick has impressed the hierarchy with calm media handling and team stability. No decision has been made on extending his contract beyond May, as the club prioritizes a thorough recruitment process without rushing. Carrick was brought in to stabilize, has exceeded expectations, but there's an acceptance that form could fade. He has interest from other clubs and was planning a break before United's call. If he doesn't get the permanent job, offers are expected. Now, I think this is a fair update. I think this is an update that is not one that's fairly sensational or anything like that. I think it's pretty, middle ground. And I think it's actually a decently good update in terms of sort of, painting a bit of a picture. Because I do think that there is a fact that, one, as far as we know, there has been no decision has been made on the manager. They did give him a contract until May, and that probably won't be figured out until, sort of late May, early June, I would assume, before the World Cup. Maybe it extends after the World Cup, or slightly after the World Cup, okay, for the manager job, although I find that a bit conflicting if that happens, because again, how I mentioned earlier, to sell the package, to sell the process, to sell the club to players that we are interested in, it helps a damn lot if we can tell them who the manager is, because people don't like uncertainty as it is, but players don't like uncertainty. So they might like the idea of Manchester United, but they will certainly want to know who the manager is going to be. And if we can't provide them that answer, they're not really going to, most of them generally aren't going to they're going to be a little bit hesitant, or they might wait. And if they might wait, that allows time for maybe somebody else in to give them an offer or a better offer and sort of beat us out to them. So, I mean, and I think this has always sort of been a bit of the plan, okay? And there's another update that goes sort of into this as well, okay? And that update is that we've gotten sort of a bit of a revised update list, okay? Grace is here and says, weird question, but do you think we should go to 4 center backs like Arsenal did, since our fullbacks aren't great at going forward, and with injury issues, we should bring in a couple of center backs with wide wingers? Do you think we should go to 4 center backs like Arsenal did? Well, the thing is, Hincapié can play both positions, right? I mean, he can play center back, he can play left back. He does play left back. I don't know if we should, but I will say, to do that, we need you need players that have the capability to be able to do such a thing. Like Hincapié has speed, and he's played that position, and like Yuri and Timber can also kind of play both positions. And I guess Ben White can also play both positions. Like, they are a bit versatile. You can't have somebody like it can't be like Maguire and sort of playing out there. I don't know if we should, because I would just say just go buy left backs and right backs. And we still have a couple players. I mean, Delo and Maz are still available. Luke Shaw is available. I believe he's not injured. And Dorgu should be coming back. So, Wheatflake says, hi, big up. What's up? How you doing? Calafiore, Hincapié, White, and Timber. Delo is shit. Well, yeah, but I mean, I guess for this season, listen, we're gonna have to try and get away with it. Like, unfortunately, we've done with a few other aspects. Okay, we're playing 1 match a week. I don't know if we can really afford to put the center backs we have. I don't really know if it'll work. I mean, the thing for me is, okay, and this is something I didn't really touch on, but now you brought it up, it sort of popped back into my head. Okay, Tyrell Malacia should never step onto the pitch ever again. Okay, because that goal that Newcastle scored, that was all his fault. Okay, and it was a bit of Carrick's fault as well. Okay, because he quite clearly trusted the wrong player, and in that situation, I've seen some people point it out. And they're right. I agree with them. Hindsight, whatever you want to call it. But I do agree that it would have been 100% of a better move to put on Aiden Heaven in left back than it would have been to put on Tyrell Malacia. Because what was that defending? Bro turned his back the wrong way in the opposite direction. I still don't know his name. Newcastle player cut in on his left foot, and then he scored a worldie to win the game. So, in that situation, I would say something like, yeah, if you put on Heaven instead of like Malacia. But we need Luke Shaw, and we need Delo, and we need Maz to just step their shit up. I mean, they're in the squad, they get paid money, okay, and they need to finish off the season. There's not a lot of games left. And then we have an opportunity that we could do something about it in the summer. I don't know if we're going to do it. There's been some reports that, a left back or a left wing back or some type of a winger that can also go into left wing back position is being looked at. I don't know about the right side, but that would be the time to do that. And we should be looking to get players that fit properly. Also, Grace, I would say it also depends on the manager. and what who is it going to be? If it's Carrick or it's going to be somebody else, and how they're going to set the team up to play, and what they're sort of going to, you know, sort of demand for their system or for their team, and how they're setting up the team. Because, you know, Arteta has sort of made it work there, but he's been there for 6 years, and you know, he's in full control of his system, and they have the players for it. They have, you know, those players that you mentioned, they have the versatility for it. So, you know, I don't know. I don't think Euro can do it. Okay. Maguire definitely can't do it. I think Martinez would be able to do it, but Martinez isn't available. And I don't think De Ligt would be able to do right back or left back. He might be able to, but I don't think I don't think he can. It's not that he's bad with the ball, but getting up and down, you know, he doesn't really have it. So we can't really do it if we don't have it, right? Maybe look to do Quinton Timber deal with Feyenoord. He is pretty good and can also play as that fullback, left back, says Wheat Flake. I mean, yeah, listen, if you're going to do something like that, you know, I'm not against trying things or whatever. I won't say that it's a shit idea and it won't work, but you got to get the proper, you know, you got to get the players that fit for it, for you to be able to do it. Otherwise, we're just doing something that is definitely not going to work because we don't have the players for that. I wish there was a bit more clarity, though, because we seem to be a bit all over the place. And for me, it's a bit hard to pin down how this is going to go, because one, we're Manchester United. We get linked with everybody and everything. We get all types of stories because it's cool to use our name. It gets the most traction. So it's always very hard to figure out, you know, what is our plan actually. Like, we all know the midfield is basically set in stone. Okay, but after the midfield, what are we actually going to do? Because sometimes you get a report about a left wing back, then yesterday they gave us reports about a center back now because of concerns over, you know, they don't know what they're going to do with Maguire. De Ligt has gotten an injury that he might not play for the rest of the season when he was supposed to be out for 2 weeks. Martinez has had 2 bad injuries, got injured, was supposed to miss 1 or 2 games. Carrick said it wasn't that big of a deal, and he doesn't look like he's going to be back for Villa. And it's going to take actually longer, so there's a bit of an injury concern with him there. So, you know, maybe things get shifted around. Maybe instead of getting a left back and a right back, which many people will say we need to upgrade those positions, that might get put on the back burner because maybe we spend a lot of money on the midfield and maybe we get a winger and maybe we have to then go get a center back. And, you know, how much money does that leave us with? And who can we get? And who is available? You know, the one thing about the left wing back and the right wing back, or the right back and the left back positions, is we don't have names from the updates, really. There isn't, like, you know, we have this long list for the midfield, and we know who the targets are. You know, the targets are the targets. They've been talked about for months. Now, we don't really have that same list for the defense in any case. You know, there's been some names being thrown around, but they seem to pop up and then not be talked about, you know, again. So, you know, it doesn't really fill me with confidence that there is like some sort of major focus on this. Would you consider Carrick naive or arrogant if he repeats his mistakes against Villa? Well, number one, I don't really expect him to repeat his mistakes. He should be learning from them, and he should be taken into account. And if he does repeat them, I would probably consider it as naive and not arrogant, because I think that would be the definition of naive for me, in that he is a bit inexperienced, okay, as a manager. And, you know, sort of his process as a manager would be sort of error and trial. And he might believe, like all managers, there's some certain things that they stick to, that they believe in, okay, and they're going to sort of stick with it, and they believe it'll work. Maybe they believe like it'll take some time to work, or they need to make some sort of adjustments, but they do believe that some of the things that they do is the right call, and they just need to, like, work on them and sort of through a process. So I would label it more as a bit naive in terms of a bit of just a lack of experience, in that, some of these things you learn through trial and error. And, he is sort of in a position where, okay, he played for us and he won things for us. But as a manager, again, he managed Middlesbrough. That's the highest he's done. He did good there, but it's the highest he's done. It's the most he's done. So I think there's a bit of learning on the job going on as well, which can lead or open him up to mistakes. And I fully expect that. I said the same thing about Ruben, because it was true. And this is sort of the thing that we've been discussing with, the level of manager. And to me, it will indicate, the club might say one thing, but the level of manager will indicate, the path of the project. Sebastian says we will win against Villa 2-1. I hope so. We'll get into that in a couple minutes, I promise. Malacia never wanted to be here. Well, maybe he didn't, but I don't know if he never wanted to be here, but I think after a certain point, it didn't go very well for him. And, his career basically just flatlined with the injury, and, just he regressed massively. And, he was brung in by Erik ten Hag, who is, this is 2 managers later, and he quite clearly is not favored by the club. And this was also sort of the thing that I was saying, like, we are a bit fortunate. And when I say we, I really mean Ineos is a bit fortunate, okay? Because I think they're getting away with one here. Because I made a big deal about January, okay? And it still pisses me off. And that Newcastle game sort of exposed it, because Carrick came in, he did a better job than anybody expected him to do, exceeded expectations with the amount of points and results that he got, and it sort of papered over the cracks. Not Michael Carrick's fault. He's just doing the job that he should do. But it papered over the cracks of Ineos a bit, because we were saying you cannot not do business in January, okay? And it would help the team to get a player, because our squad is not perfect. Our squad still needs updates in it. And you should be trying to do a deal for a position that we have a weakness in. Whether that would have been left back, right back, a winger, or a centre mid. There was about 4 positions there. You could have went out and found a player and got him. And it doesn't have to be some superstar signing, okay? Nobody is saying you got to spend 80 million on a player for that specific position. I always keep saying, if you can find a Senny Lemons for goal, you can find a Senny Lemons for left back, right back, winger, okay? Somebody that, let's just use left back, for example, okay? Somebody that may be at the age of Senny Lemons, that's not going to cost you a lot of money, okay? That you can go get, that you can bring in, that I would look and say, this guy that we'll take a chance on, that's something new, that, who knows what could happen. He could become, have a really good impact like Sene. It could be shit. But let's give that guy, let's go with this guy, let's give him a shot over, I don't know, Tyrell Malacia, who we all know is finished and isn't good enough, and was supposed to be moved out of the club and somehow is still here, and is now somehow on our bench. And in a situation that transpired against Newcastle, where Shaw had to come off, okay, and we ran out of options, and you have to put on Malacia, which then leads us to getting conceded a goal and losing, instead of getting a point, which really, we were up a man. We should have found out how to get 3 points, but instead of even getting a point, we got 0 points. Grace with the super chat says, haven't been around much, but hit the likes, you scrubs. 7-0 United, or Carrick's gotta go. Malacia wanted to show off his arse more than he wanted to defend. Thank you for the super chat, Grace. I really appreciate it. Won't you blame Maguire for backtracking? I already did. I did. Not really for backtracking, but I just Maguire he's too slow. He was too slow to react. So he was part of it. Dara Crow, he was part of it. I did at that time, but I mean, really, listen. On the weight of it, okay, Malacia's thing was levels worse than Maguire. Okay, Maguire was just late. He backtracked. He misread it, but he was late to react. He needed to step up a couple seconds before. So he was part of it for sure. But the Malacia thing was horrendous. Okay, Maguire's thing, it's a mistake. It does happen. You could say it shouldn't happen or it can't happen, but it does happen. And you do know from him, that's one of the things, okay? He's been really sort of strong and good in other areas, okay? He's definitely stepped it up, these past couple years compared to the beginning of his career here. But that's his one thing, all right? He is on the slower side. So, Man United will beat Villa about 3-1. I like the confidence from people. Looking for a response after the Villa. Okay, after the Newcastle, sorry. For the Villa. Wheatflake says, mean, but why did Carrick take off Luke and then play Malacia? Luke had to come on. He couldn't play. I believe because Luke was sick. Okay, Luke and Maguire were sick, which is why they came off the match before. And I don't think maybe Maguire was okay, but Maguire had to come off anyway. But or he was struggling, like fitness wise. I wouldn't believe that for a second. I wouldn't believe Carrick would sit there and be like, even if Luke was playing like crap, there's no way you have any confidence in Malacia to come in and play better than Luke, even if Luke was playing like shit. It was something that he was quite clearly forced into. And this is what happens when you don't have players, okay? Because the manager might get forced into a situation to put on a player that he wouldn't use. And then things like this happen, So, left back, 1. The midfield, that game was drowning. We could have used somebody. Ugarte is not a guy in that situation that's going to help us. We need somebody with a higher level than him, okay? We don't have it. And, then we have in the attack, Diallo. And the one thing I criticize Carrick for is that Diallo should have came on for Mbeumo way earlier, because Mbeumo had a horrible game. And he was quite clearly struggling, and he should have came off, way earlier. It wasn't his match. So, I want Bruno G for the Casemiro replacement. How much would you pay for him? I think we would have to pay like 80 million for him. And I think Newcastle would demand 100 and 120 million. I like Bruno G. Very good player. He's experienced in terms of he's sort of in his prime age. Okay, he has the physicality, and he's mobile. Okay, for his build. But Newcastle will, we talked about it earlier. They won't make that. They won't make that deal easy. So if we're gonna get him, we're gonna have to pay probably a premium for him, because they don't really want to sell him, and it'll probably be using the more recent example, Alexander Isak, and the way they went about that with Liverpool, and Liverpool ended up paying. They ultimately got them, but ultimately they paid the price that they paid for. So, I think it'll be, unless something transpires, okay, and maybe it's just sort of, pumping out your chest right now. Maybe Newcastle are trying to flex and scare people off. All right, right now maybe things change, but I think to get Tonali or to get Bruno Guimaraes, it's going to be a very painful, drawn out, and pricey thing to do. So I don't know if United have the means to do that. And I don't know if United, if other clubs are involved and there's interest in him, I don't know if United will be able to compete with that. So Wheatflake says no more than 75, 80 million price tag. I think that's what it would have to be because, again, good player, Premier League, and Newcastle. But I think Newcastle would ask for 120 million because they will view us. Okay, we might not view them, but they will view us as sort of direct competition, and in a way, we are. Okay, because we play in the same league anyway. But they will They will view us as direct competitors for a Champions League spot. There is no way they're going to sanction a deal for what they determine as probably one of the top 3 players that they have to a team that is competing for them for Champions League spots, unless you give them a premium price. So, Axe says yes, Nuggets or Carrick, one of the two. Well, we're going to continue that conversation in a second. Who will take out of Michael Carrick and Julian Nagelsmann? He's tied with Germany team until 2028 or 2029, so it would be quite difficult getting Julian Nagelsmann. I don't think it's that difficult because people, when it comes to internationals, they leave all the time. It's not kind of like club to club transaction. Wheat flake. I think the only thing that might make it a bit maybe less appealing to Manchester United is that we would have to pay something to get him out of that contract. I think Nagelsmann, if he's interested, okay, let's just say he is. I don't think there's a problem in him going to leave Germany. I don't think he's really that stuck into it, especially because the World Cup is happening. And a lot of managers tend to do a World Cup and then maybe leave. He's a young guy. I think he's like 38, 39. I don't really expect him to stay at the national team after this period. I think he's going to come back into sort of club football. He just sort of did it because, again, he's a young guy and that situation happened in Bayern. And, maybe he felt some pride in his country to go do the national team and see if he can help them win a World Cup or something like that. And I think also it keeps him in a job and it keeps him working and maybe it allows him to, sort of work on his craft a little bit more. Maybe there wasn't a project at that time available that he kind of quite liked. So he said, I'll just take the Germany job and go there. And, and then if something opens up that I like, I'll eventually leave from here and I'll go back to club football. The thing that, again, is that we will have to pay. And there are managers out there that we won't have to pay for. De Zerbi, maybe even Xavi, okay? So it really comes down to United, and it comes down to Ineos, and it comes down to, what are they willing to do and how serious they are. Because, again, to me, Ineos give me this vibe. Sometimes it feels like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too. And I don't really agree with that approach. I don't agree with pretending like you're going to do the best thing you possibly can when you're doing the cheaper thing because it's cheaper money-wise, okay? And then trying to pass it off as the best thing possible. When the best thing possible sometimes costs you more money, okay? But there's a reason for that. So, I blame the Glazers for the goal. I blame the Glazers for everything, but my comments are being censored. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it, Weeflake. You'll learn. You'll learn. But listen, since we're talking about the manager, okay, and I started off with the Carrick thing, okay, that he impressed the hierarchy with calm media handling and team stability. I mean, I guess if that's like sort of impressive, I mean, I don't know. I feel like that should sort of just be a bit of a standard if you're a fucking manager. But I guess some people would make the argument that, you know, Ruben didn't really do that. So, but anyway, and there's been no decision made on extending his contract. Okay, now we did get another update, or the same update. Mark Ogden continues on. Okay, and this is sort of a revised sort of list. All right, to a little bit of an extent, and this maybe is what we're looking at. Okay, because this is sort of been nailed out a bit. All right, and this is what Mark Ogden continued to say on his update. He said top targets Thomas Tuchel and Carlo Ancelotti are unavailable, gone, done, out the window, not happening, no chance, zero. Okay, narrowing options for managers with proven Premier League / Champions League success. He also goes on to say Michael Carrick lacks major trophy credentials despite strong recent improvements, in parentheses, with help from coach Steve Holland. Alternatives include Unai Emery, Adoni Areola, Oliver Glasner, Roberto De Zerbi, Julian Nagelsmann. Okay? And then to top this off, he says Mauricio Pochettino is ruled out, likely returning to Tottenham after World Cup. Only Emery could be seen as a clear upgrade, but his push for full control conflicts with United's setup under the Ineos board. There's a bit to unpack there. And to me, again, if United are actually trying to prioritize Premier League / Champions League success, well, right off the bat, Unai Emery and Julian Nagelsmann have to be the leading contenders for this position if there's no Thomas Tuchel, Carlo Ancelotti, Luis Enrique, etc., because De Zerbi has a certain level of Premier League success, but it's only with Brighton, okay? And I don't see much of a difference. And we talked about De Zerbi yesterday, but I don't like if Carrick is doing this well, then how are you going to sell me De Zerbi? You can't. Unai Emery, okay, he's been experienced, okay? I have a bit of reservations about Unai Emery because he's been a manager for a long time. And I said this months ago when people were basically like, Ruben is going to get sacked or should be sacked. And they started talking about other managers. And Unai is a manager that has not gotten over the line. He hasn't won a Champions League. He hasn't done particularly well in Champions League. Okay? He's won the Europa League multiple times, and his basically aggregated finish throughout his entire managerial career is about 4th to 5th place. That is his like sort of level. You know, he hasn't won top major trophies. So if you go with Unai, okay, fine. But Unai tells me, again, it's not Carlo and it ain't Tuchel and it ain't Luis Enrique. Unai tells me, okay, we'll get a manager that maybe will stabilize things for the next 3 seasons or so and maybe improve us to a certain degree. But I will not expect Unai to get us over the line. I will not expect Unai to get us to win a Premier League and a Champions League because I don't think it'll happen, because I don't think he can, because he hasn't done it. Now, maybe he comes and he does it, but with all the indications, I don't think he will. If you go with somebody like Areola, again, it's basically the same thing. He plays maybe good, exciting football. Okay, I like the football that Bournemouth play. All right, but where are the credentials for winning these things and getting over the line? He doesn't have it. Glasner doesn't have it. De Zerbi doesn't have it. And even Julian Nagelsmann doesn't have it. The only thing is that Julian Nagelsmann has managed Bayern, okay? And he's done quite well in, you know, Champions League matches and stuff like that. So he has some Champions League experience. And, you know, he's, to be said, he plays a good brand of football. So there's just, you know, and thank God Pochettino was ruled out, because I did not want Poch. Listen, the Poch ship sailed a long time ago, and I think Poch is washed, okay? And Poch, if he goes back to Tottenham, I mean, I don't even know why he would do that to himself. He shouldn't do that because of what they did to him. I wouldn't do it. But if he goes to Tottenham, great. Thank you. Go to Tottenham. I don't want you here. That ship sailed a long time ago. That's about 5, 6 years too late on that one. All right. With many different clubs, Villarreal and Sevilla, and then one more maybe. Yes. So, but here's my thing. Like, and this is where the trouble is going to come in, because I know this fan base and I know how we are and I know what happens, okay? And if we get Unai Emery, there's going to be at least 60% of the fan base, maybe more, that's going to be, they're going to be sold some part of a dream that Unai Emery is going to come in, he's going to win us the Premier League, and people are going to get excited and people are going to get hyped up, and I don't think it's going to happen. And I think we're going to be 2-3 years down the line and we're going to hit a certain level and then that's it. And people are going to get furious and people are going to get pissed because it's not going to progress to the level that they expect it to progress. And they're going to call for his head and he'll probably get sacked at some point. And this is why I don't like really what's going on from United, because they've put out this, since they came in, this Project 2028 or whatever the hell it's called, because I don't even remember what it's called. But they basically promised us that we're gonna win the league by 2028. Okay, well, yeah, we're running out of time to do that. Okay, and we don't even have an actual manager at the current moment in time. We don't even know who it's gonna be. Whoever we get, okay, and notice they're not talking about it anymore. But this is what they told us. This is what they set the groundwork for when they came in. This was the initial laying of the foundation of their promise and their project to the United fan base when they came in. They said that they were going to do this. Okay, any of these managers on the list, I don't think that they won't do it by 2028. They won't do it. So they need, and at the same time, they're pushing and peddling stories that they're going to do this best manager in class search. And I know what they're going to do as well. Whoever they hire, whoever takes the job, they're going to spin it into that, they're going to ultimately go on to win. And I think that's wrong because, again, I view it as whoever you give the job to, and you're setting them up to fail because you're making people buy into something that it's just not going to happen in the time span that you're deeming it to. Again, even with Julian Nagelsmann, I like the guy. I like him a lot. I wanted him before Ten Hag. Before we got Ten Hag, I was okay with Ten Hag. I was okay with getting Ten Hag, but I like Julian Nagelsmann. I like the brand of football he plays. I like that he's a younger guy. I like Julian Nagelsmann. But even with Julian Nagelsmann, it would have to take him 3 years, and the club would have to do right by him. Iriola, I don't know. I'm a little bit less confident. I like the brand of football he plays, right? But what's his level, and how is he going to handle Manchester United and the expectations and the pressure? And you see what's like happening with Bournemouth, with him at Bournemouth. Like he can't really, that's sort of, if he replicates anything like that at Manchester United, it's basically like Ruben 2.0. Like you can't be doing that either. Like he'll get crushed by that. I don't like Glasner. I don't think Glasner is a good option. I don't really believe in Glasner. Okay. So for me, really, the two, and I don't really rate De Zerbi. And I haven't rated De Zerbi. So to me, the two front runners out of these people that we have in this list, it's got to be Emery and Nagelsmann, excluding Carrick, because Carrick is there. But I'm saying the list we have, excluding Carrick, the top two has got to be Unai and Nagelsmann, because they are, out of that list, they are the two best managers. Unai has tons of experience. And he can stabilize us to a certain level. But I ain't gonna buy into that he's gonna bring us to the promised land. And if we hire him, I'm already going into it that after a certain period of time, we're going to have to try and get somebody that is another level or two above him. And maybe, I'm sure by that time Ancelotti won't be in the conversation. Maybe Thomas Tuchel will come back around. Maybe a Luis Enrique will be available. Maybe like a Hansi Flick or something. Somebody that's actually done something will have to come in. That would have to be the next step. Julian Nagelsmann could be one that he's younger. He's got good experience, okay? And he's a good brand of football. And he might be given a little bit more leeway because he's on the younger side. He still obviously has to get, results. And progress needs to be made and shown, right? But he could be one that, you sort of say, okay, we're going with sort of another young manager, but he's more experienced and at a higher level. And, it could take a few years. And his story is a little bit sort of not written yet either because of his young age and how young he is in his managerial career, where he can, he hasn't really been in a position where you say, like Unai, like where Unai's been doing this for so long, and you look at Unai's finishing, generally, total aggregate, and you say, yeah, he's pretty much like a 4th, 5th place manager. That's where he brings his clubs to. That's the highest he can finish. And Europa League trophies. Nagelsmann's a little bit more of a open. There's still more chapters to be written. You know what I mean? I think De Zerbi is fairly mid-table, average, not mid-table, but like mid-average. Glasner doesn't fill me with confidence, and Iriola, while he might bring an exciting brand of football, I think it's a bit, it's more risky because it's way more unknown in terms of I don't know how he'll handle Manchester United. Axe says all the other options are shit except for Carrick and Nuggets, man. We should not discuss other managers. They don't have our DNA. Tottenham board has got worse off debatably, so don't understand why Pochettino will go back to him. Well, I think one of the reasons why Pochettino might go back to him is because I've said this, but Poch is washed, okay, to a certain degree. Poch's career has gone down. Listen, I'm from the United States of America, okay, and so is Reynoso, okay, and I don't know how Reynoso feels about this, but I will tell you, as an American, first generation, all right, if you are a manager and you managed in the Premier League and you took a team to a Champions League final, okay, and you competed for the Premier League and then you went to PSG and you were manager there and you got sacked there and you end up as the head coach for the men's U.S. national team, you gotta be, to a level, you gotta be washed. Because how you end up in that job, to me, tells me, yeah, the people interested in you, okay, were on basically a shit level. And so you went to go do international. And I have a very sort of international, I don't really rate it like that, okay? I view it as a very lower standard, okay, compared to league football. And, there's some coaches out there, like Roberto Martinez, for example, who was linked to us a couple weeks ago, all right? Like, I don't want him at Manchester United. I don't view him as a manager that would do good at Manchester United. I don't view him as a top manager. He probably belongs in international football, because that's where he's been for like all of this time. And there is a reason why he stayed there. Because if you're going to be a good manager, okay, you don't end up in international football. International football, look at the other coaches. It's almost a bit of a retirement home, okay? Look where Ancelotti went. But look how long it took Ancelotti to get there. All right? Now, there's been a bit of a breaking of the mold to a certain degree, because some guys, like maybe Nagelsmann or whatever, they're going in there as well and doing maybe a bit of a stint. But generally, it's been the managers that are sort of on the back end of their career. It's a bit of a retirement home for them. There's a reason for that. It's less work, okay? You don't see the players as much. And the level of football is not as high, and it's not as demanding as if you manage a top 4, top 5, top 6 club in the Premier League, or if you manage Real Madrid or Barcelona or Bayern Munich, or maybe like an Inter Milan or like an AC Milan or a Napoli or something like that. We'll take Eric ten Heisenberg back, maybe, because there is a conversation to be had, to be honest. Just kidding. Renault says, all right, guys, I'm off. About to barbecue. Nice. Bunch of burgers with the family. I'll see you in Discord. Everyone stay blessed. Yep, be good. Thank you, Renault. So enjoy your barbecue, brother. I don't got the weather for that yet. Still a bit. It's warmed up over here on this side of the country. Yeah, but not really barbecue weather yet. You know, New York, we have sort of we have about 3 winters, 2 fake springs, you know, a fake summer. So we're sort of in the fake spring period right now. We'll probably get the 3rd winter in a week or two, and then hopefully it'll warm up. Will be nice where I can be outside. Julian Nagelsmann, Carrick, and Emery needs to be the main front runners to take the Manchester United job. I think that's what it's boiling down to. You know, unless somebody, listen, there's always a possibility that somebody sort of pops out of nowhere to a certain degree. That's not really being discussed now, but maybe when it gets closer to the time that the decision is actually going to be made, we start getting a ton of, you know, press or updates about somebody that wasn't mentioned right now. Because, I mean, that sort of happened with Ruben to a little bit of a degree. Okay, we had, like, Ruben was never really held in contention. Especially, like, when Ten Hag was sort of in limbo and he was potentially going to lose his job after the FA Cup, Ruben was mentioned, but he wasn't ever considered a front runner. And when Ten Hag got sacked, there was a couple other names that seemed to be more prominent in the very beginning, but then Ruben sort of came a little bit out of nowhere and just took the job and became the front runner. So I don't know. To me, I am a bit disappointed, because I do think that it would probably do us very well if we were able to get a level of a manager like Ancelotti, Tuchel, or Luis Enrique. I think we need that. I think we've been missing it. I think, you know, I think it would bring us to a certain level that we've sort of been missing. You know, I said this the other day. Jose Mourinho is still our best post Sir Alex Ferguson manager. There's a reason for that. Okay, CV is not be all and end all, but if you look at over our last 13 years, well, he had the best CV, and he was our most successful in terms of what he did. So, and if you look at the managers we got after that, okay, and you look at their CV and you look at their credentials, well, they weren't as good as his, and they didn't do as good as his. So, you know, I like Michael Carrick. I do. And I wish him nothing but the best. But if we're going with Carrick, then the process needs to be talked about in a different way. And the understanding needs to be talked about in a different way in terms of where this club is going to be headed. And, you know, I would put it on the CEO, the director of football, even Sir Jim Ratcliffe. You have to come out and sort of own up to that and set the record straight and be like, listen, we're going with Michael Carrick. It's going to take longer than what we promised. And we've had to change some things. And, you know, we need patience. They're not going to, you know, they're not really going to get patience if they call for it. People will give patience to Michael Carrick, but they're not going to give patience to Ineos, because why should they? You know, the Glazers are still here. They did a deal with the Glazers. The Glazers burned all the patience. They burned all the trust. So Ineos, by extension, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. But it's something that they have to do, because otherwise it's just going to create a shitstorm. Because people are going to demand a level of success that's not going to happen in a certain amount of period. And then once the fans lose their shit, that's it. Everything starts falling apart at this football club. But But there was the interesting point in that update also is that there is an issue with these guys. And this is something that doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. And this is, I tell you where this is coming from, okay? Because people have forgotten about him. Okay, Sir David Brailsford, I still think he might not be around. I don't know, I don't think he's actually at Manchester United. Supposedly he stepped back from his role when he first came in, okay? But I think Sir David Brailsford either has left an influence or is still having some sort of an influence, because what they are doing around the managerial position, it is literally Sir David Brailsford. It is 100% Sir David Brailsford's philosophy. Because we did an extensive deep dive on Sir David Brailsford when Ineos actually purchased the partial buy of the club, the partial percentage. And that interview that he's done is still on YouTube. It's still there, and you can go watch it. But he explained, and I remember covering it, he explained when he went into the cycling team, okay, with Britain, all right, the number one thing that they did was, and he explained this, and he said that we gave sort of more freedom and more power to the players in a certain degree, and we took more of it away from the coaches. And that's what we're doing. And we have this issue, and I don't know if this works in football to a certain degree at the level that they're trying to do it. Because one of the reasons why we don't have Tuchel is because he demanded a certain level of power or influence that they were unwilling to give him. So he rejected the job, and negotiations broke down, and he went with England. And that also hurt for maybe, after we sacked Ruben, we tried to go back in for him, and he just wasn't about it. And maybe they weren't about it either, because they knew where he stood and he knew where they stood, and there was just no reason to talk about it. Unai will probably demand the same, as according to this. He will push for full control, and it does conflict with United's setup. So we might not even end up getting Unai, because he will not succumb to the demands of not having full control, and Ineos are not going to budge on giving the manager full control. So if that's the case, and that happens with a few managers, we're going to be left, we're going to end up with managers that would typically manage a Brighton, a Bournemouth, a West Ham or something, like a mid-table club. Even to a Michael Carrick. And it's not disrespect to Carrick, but Carrick is not going to come in and be like, give me total control or I'm fucking walking out. It's why he's here now. It's why he's an option. It's also why he's being considered. Part of the reason why he's being considered. We'll take Ralph Rangnick back as an advisor type director of football, constant consultant, and work with Christopher Vell if he's willing to. Yeah, I don't think he's willing to. Ralph, I wouldn't either after what they did to Ralph. Okay, and if I was Ralph, I wouldn't either. And I wouldn't blame him. And since he's been gone, the things he's come out and said, yeah, he doesn't like us anymore. Yeah, he hates us. Okay, just like Van Gaal hates us. Okay, and Van Gaal despises us. Okay, Van Gaal despises our football club. Right? When Van Gaal is calling people and telling them don't go to Manchester United, and when Van Gaal was returned to being the Dutch manager, and he was going out of his way to basically tell players, if you go to Manchester United, you're not getting into the squad, it's because he hates us. Because of the way we operated and the way they were treated. And the same thing is for Ralph. What they did to Ralph was fucked up, and it was wrong. And he should have always stayed as a consultant. I don't know how they threw him under the bus as a manager, because he was never supposed to be a manager. They blamed everything on him. They kicked him out of the club. They removed him immediately. And then they sort of threw it on Erik ten Hag because he was the new guy. And they were like, yeah, well, we didn't really kick him out. we were looking for Ten Hag to work with Ralph, but Ten Hag didn't want to, and maybe he didn't, but we all know same reasons that Ruben got sacked, okay? Because he came out and spoke poorly about how, his bosses or how the club's being run, okay? Ralph did the same thing, and Ralph lost his job. Or Ralph was, basically just kicked out of the club. So that's never happening. I mean, what we're looking at is pretty much this list here. So, it is at this point in time, it is what it is. And I guess we'll see how it goes with that, because I don't know. Those options don't really fill me with a level of confidence in that, you get one of those guys in, and I'm just looking at it and I'm like, it's going to take 6 years. It'll take another 6 seasons. Not to say that we can't make improvement or progress in the initial first 3 seasons of whoever it is. I think some obviously fill me with more confidence than others. But there's United fans out there that just expect us to create a team that's going to win the Premier League in the next 2 seasons. And I just don't see it happening. I don't see it happening. He isn't really a manager type, Ralph. Was meant to be more consultant, background staff working with Man United board to achieve something with them. He was supposed to be, but for whatever reason, some of our fan base, for whatever reason, some of our fan base attacks him for being a manager. They considered him a manager. They considered him up for the job as manager. As far as I know, that wasn't never supposed to be the case. Okay, he took over, as interim, but he was what they always told us was he was supposed to just do that to assess the squad. We'll get a new manager after, and he will go upstairs. And there's a good amount of our fans that they hate Ralph Rangnick, and they talk shit about Ralph Rangnick because somehow they have come to the understanding that he was going to be made some sort of a permanent manager. And they were like, he's shit, and he did shit. And they basically side with him getting kicked out of the football club, which I never understood how that sort of happened. I don't really know where they got that understanding from, because that was never the case. That was never the case. And it wasn't supposed to be the case. So I don't know if United put out some spin that maybe missed me, but hit some others. But he was always... He was never supposed to be the manager. I never signed up for that. I didn't. I never thought that was a good idea, because, I mean, he's not, like you said, he's not really the manager type. And what level of a manager was he? Just like how we're talking about these other guys. What level of a manager was he? He wasn't that top end. He created a system. He could identify players, and that we very much well know. He gave us a list in a press conference of players that he wanted to sign in January. 5 of them, to be exact, and they were all, or turned out to be, really good players that we signed. 0 of them. But in terms of being a manager day to day, he was never supposed to be that. I wouldn't want him to be that. I don't think he would be good at that. Again, he's doing international, different story, different level. But, yeah, he'll never come back. Never come back. He doesn't want to come back. The Glazers are still here. They'll never have him back. For the things he said. It'll never happen. Because even if Ineos wanted to do that, I can guarantee you Joe Glazer and Avram Glazer would be calling up Sir Jim. And they would be telling him there's absolutely no fucking way. He's not allowed. Not allowed. And I don't think Ineos want him anyway. So, because they have Jason Wilcox. And Jason Wilcox has a good relationship with Sir Jim in terms of they're buddies. They're English. And so, and we've already seen it. Dan Ashworth basically lost his job because he wasn't in alignment with Jason Wilcox or maybe even Omar Barada. And Sir Jim clearly made the decision. He took Jason Wilcox's side over Dan Ashworth. Dan Ashworth lost his job immediately. And Jason Wilcox got a promotion to director of football when he was technical director. And I didn't even, he's never even been, I don't think he's ever even, I don't even think he's really qualified for director of football, especially at a big institution like Manchester United. So, we do have this update. Where did that go? Exactly, that relationship looks broke, to be honest. He's not going to join this club. No, it's not going to happen. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jason Wilcox, because it is coming to a point that, listen, there's a lot of stuff. Right now, it's on him and Omar, okay? And people will have a go at Sir Jim if this shit kind of, crumbles or doesn't do well. And Sir Jim will definitely 100% at some point, okay? Because he can talk about public pressure and all he wants. But if it doesn't go well, Sir Jim will definitely at some point, he will throw Jason Wilcox under the bus. Jason Wilcox will get the axe from his job. We will get stories about Jason Wilcox being bad at his job. They will throw everything on him. And then we'll be in a position where we're going to have to hire a new director of football. My hopes maybe for that would be that it would be Christopher Vivell. Because I think, and I've been saying this for quite some time, I think Christopher Vivell is probably the best football guy we have. I rate him better than Jason Wilcox. And I think he's better than Omar at football. Omar is a CEO for a reason. Because he's not dealing with just football. He's dealing with the money and other aspects of the club. So, I mean, there might be better director of footballs out there than maybe Christopher Vivell. But the way I look at it right now, I would have kept Jason as a technical director. And I would have had Vivell as director of football. But it is what it is. We just got an update, by the way, 5 minutes ago, that Manchester United have added Matheus Fernandes to their midfield shortlist for the summer. A move could become much easier if West Ham are relegated. Fernandes reportedly idolizes Bruno Fernandes and would love the opportunity to play alongside him. Okay, and that's coming from Abola, which is a Portuguese source. All right. And, yeah, I mean, listen, he's a young guy. I think he's 21. He's got a good side to his game. And this is one that, I said we need 3 midfielders. I think he's one that you can do, and he could be the third. And I'd be very happy with him being the third. I think he has a good amount of talent. And one that we could do a bit on the cheaper side. Okay, but he's been playing in the Prem, and he's already had sort of this adjustment period to Premier League football. Okay, not with us. So, I would like that if we get him. I think he could be sort of our third. We need 3 signings in the midfield. So, and we got to sell Ugarte. So, I think him for a cheaper deal, especially if West Ham are relegated, it should be cheap, relatively cheap. And then we're going to have to go for somebody, bigger. Like Elliot Anderson's going to cost a decently good amount of money, anywhere from 60 to 80 million. And whoever the other guy is will probably cost maybe around 60 million. So, we're going to end up on at least 2 players. We're going to spend anywhere from 120 to 150 million on 2 players in the central midfield. Maybe it's Baleba, whatever it is. Maybe with Matheus Fernandes, we could get him for, 25, 35 million. Definitely on the cheaper side. Good player. Wheat Flake, he was pushing to sign Benjamin Sesko over Ollie Watkins, and his Bundesliga experience and connections seem quite vital. Well, he definitely was doing that. But I just, I've always said that, when Vivell came in, if you go look at Vivell's sort of history at RB Leipzig, okay? If you look at the players that he was bringing in and identifying at RB Leipzig. Like Vivel has he has the IQ. He has the player ID. Okay? Like he knows how to he can identify players at a very early age before loads of clubs are put onto them or they're put into the spotlight. Bring them into the team that fits the system for what we're playing and the league, okay? And he has a very good track record of that, and that's where I look at it and I sort of say, well, I think he's better than Jason Wilcox at it. So he was. He started off as a video analyst, okay? And then he was a scout, and he was a match analyst, and then a scout again at Hoffenheim, okay? This was, his start. He then was head of scouting, okay? He was a sports coordinator, then a technical director at RB, first at Salzburg, then Leipzig, okay? He was a squad planner, okay? And then he went to be a technical director at Chelsea for about a year, and now he's head of recruitment at our football club. So his track record in identifying players, and I guess maybe he does fit maybe head of recruitment, but I think he could do a job as director of football. I think he could do a job as director of football. I rate him very highly. We need more people like him. Okay, he's not English. He's not associated with Manchester United. He was very good at the position he does. He's 39 years of age. Okay, so he's fairly young, especially for roles like that. I mean, those guys can do it till they're like 75. We need more people like him. I don't really consider Jason Wilcox to be on the same level. The pinnacle of director of football for me is Luis Campos. I think he's the best one in the world. I think he is the best one currently in the world. I think there's nobody better than him. He's at PSG, and we ain't gonna get him, not right now. But there was the one that Arsenal just got in, Andrea Berta. Okay, he's very up there as well. He's probably top 5. Arsenal got him now. We should have been in for him. We weren't in for him. Red Times 45020 says Enrique first, then Nagelsmann second choice. Then, if both not available, we give Carrick 12 months. 12 months notice, 3 years. Well, I don't think Enrique is available though. I don't think Enrique is a serious candidate. I think Enrique is one that is sort of just. I don't think Enrique is going anywhere. And I don't think Enrique is actually available. So, I mean, if he is available, then obviously 100% Enrique, you know what I mean? But I don't actually think Enrique, I think Enrique is one of those stories that, because it's Luis Enrique and it's Manchester United, mention them in the story because it's going to create a huge buzz. But there's nothing actually in it, and nothing's actually going to come from it, unfortunately. I would love nothing more because I think Luis Enrique is a brilliant manager, okay? And beyond a manager, I think he's a brilliant person, okay? His story is, amazing in terms of, he's lost his daughter and shit like that he's gone through, and he's persevered to a lot, and he's a winner, all right? Like, he is a guy that's been through some shit that has persevered, and I think that alone, coupled with being, a good manager in terms of tactician and stuff like that, is what Manchester United would need. So, I think, he would be somebody that would fit us phenomenally because he's been through some tough shit in life, okay? Especially, you lose a daughter, all right? That's probably the toughest thing you could probably go through, all right? So, like, Manchester United, the pressure of Manchester United, okay? He's won the Champions League. He's managed high-level clubs. That, that's all, like, nothing. to him. All right, to what he's gone through. So he knows how to handle, high stress, high pressure situation. He can handle it. I would love nothing more than to get him, but I just there's nothing that tells me that that it's actually going to happen. I think it's just one of those stories that they just, United needs a coach or United needs a manager, and Luis Enrique is a big name, and it's just a story you can run for some clicks at the time, and then like it sort of just evaporates. Or maybe you bring it up later on down the line, but it's just something that never materializes because there's nothing really there. Listen, if he leaves, or, it's like, Fabrizio comes to us and gives us a story and says like, he's going to leave or he's available, different story then, Then we actually have something to hope on. But I think right now, based off of the list we just discussed, I mean, he's not in it. And he's generally not in it. He was mentioned once or twice, but I think it's not. I just think it's fluff. Hey, what other Bundesliga players do you want Manchester United to target? And this is a few, not extensive list. Maybe Schlotterbeck and Brown and Nemeckia. Well, there is some good players over there. Okay. We have been linked to 3 RB Leipzig players yesterday. Obviously one being Jan Diomande. The other one is Castello Luqueba, who is their center back, who is young. I think he's French. Young center back, 21 years of age. He's very good as well. And then they have a young central midfielder as well. So, listen, I wouldn't go too crazy with the Bundesliga players right now. In my opinion, I do think we majoritarily, okay, maybe we could get one out of there, all right, but majoritarily, I think it would still do us good to probably get some more Premier League proven players. We've seen a few teams do this, and I think we need to do it as well, okay? In today's time, you still tend to pay a high amount of money anyway. There's not much of a difference anymore going outside of the league. There is sometimes, but again, somebody like Jan, okay, young guy, all right, Leipzig, they're saying they want like 80 to 100 million, okay? People don't really want to pay that. Maybe you end up paying 60, 70, 80. It's still very high. You could get a player from the Premier League and pay 60, 70, 80 and sort of circumvent the whole, or mitigate the risk, because at least the player, you see the player play week in, week out in the Premier League. So I think we could do very well with getting, a few more Premier League players. Even take a look at Manchester City right now. Like, they did go and get some players from other leagues. Like, they got Cherky and all these other guys, but they're sort of circling back. Okay, they just went in for Semenyo. They went in for Gahey. They're looking at Elliot Anderson. They're looking to get some Premier League players to support the other players that they got out. And we don't have the best of luck in recent times. It hasn't been all bad, but with going outside the league and paying sort of a big fee for somebody that's maybe got a lot of potential but isn't proven. So I think for the midfield, it would do as well to get, if we could get 2 Premier League sort of players from the midfield, and maybe we get one from like the Bundesliga or something, I think that's all right. But I would prefer more Premier League players. Enrique is great and brilliant coach with great tactics, but not sure he'll want to be Glazers and Sir Jim. Well, that's also a thing. I mean, and the aspect of that would be, again, sort of the power dynamic. The power dynamic. Enrique would want. Listen, Enrique he can be strict, okay, and he's obviously going to demand a certain level of control. and Ineos would have to be willing to grant him that. And for me, it's a no-brainer, okay? And I think for most of us, be like, if you're getting a manager of the level of Luis Enrique, obviously you break the exception and say, yeah, well, work with the guy. Maybe you don't give him 100%, but make it to some, budge on it, move on it, make it workable for the guy so that he will be willing to accept the job. Negotiate, okay? Because like with Tuchel, for example, they essentially weren't willing to negotiate. They just were like, you're not getting this level of power. We're not giving it to you. We're not giving it to anybody. And he was just like, all right, well, fuck off. And they might do the same to Luis Enrique, which is why they might not want him, which is why I worry about the direction of the club, because I think you can't do everything. I don't know I don't know how to describe it exactly, but it just feels like everything is like, we're trying to do this, like, Temu version, this like cheap, fake version of trying to be successful to a certain degree. I kind of feel like we've put up barriers for ourselves, right? And we're like, we have to stay in this lane, while I look at other clubs and their barriers, maybe, we're in a single lane and they have like multiple lanes. And I just feel like if we're restricting ourselves to a certain degree, like it doesn't fill me with confidence. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. And that's how I sort of see it with this aspect. Because it's like, again, you're putting up a barrier and basically saying, we're only taking managers that are willing to accept this level of power. Okay, well, that means that, like, 25, 30, 40% of managers out there, you're writing them off, which is limiting our options, which is limiting our, potential future success. And I sort of used this example the other day with Tottenham, because Tottenham have ended up where Tottenham have ended up because they've done the same thing to themselves, but with players, because of of player wages and player fees. Okay, they put up barriers at their football club, and they basically were like, we won't spend over a certain amount of money in wages, and we won't spend over a certain amount of money in transfer fees. And they've been doing this for a certain amount of years, and slowly but surely, they end up with less and less better players. And they slowly go into decline until they end up where they are now. And they're in a position that's quite fucked. Axe says Enrique will be dog shit in the EPL. I disagree. For what reason would he be dog shit? Explain. Elaborate. Give me some reasons why. Okay, so then won't be getting Nordi Mukiele. Lawrence's direction is to get Europa as a minimum each season and then garner investment for the new stadium. Well, the thing about the new stadium is, I talked about it yesterday, there's a potential problem with the stadium because we got a report yesterday. It's supposed to cost £2 billion, okay? And they're reporting that it can now cost 3 billion plus. And we did talk about this probably months ago. It was probably like 8 months ago, okay? But there is a piece of land there where United are trying to build a new stadium that is owned by a company, okay? And United, I believe, offered I believe they offered 50 million to buy that company's piece of the land. And that company is telling them, no, we want 400 million. And United cannot do the regeneration project to the extent they want to do unless they get that piece of land. So they're going to have to get that piece of land. And that piece of land is going to be more expensive than they projected. And there was also reported that there could be significant delays, okay, in the stadium that would push it back another 10 years, and this stadium's not going to open until 2030. 20 No, not 2030, sorry. 2038 or something like that. I had it yesterday. I think I still have it here. I think I had it bookmarked. Where is it? I'm pretty sure I bookmarked it. Nope. Nope. Come on, man. How are you bringing stuff up from 2025? There was literally a report about it yesterday. Internet. Good for nothing sometimes. I just want to find the report that they gave us yesterday that I read out on the show so I could be accurate. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Wish I knew where it was. Enrique will probably smash it at Man City. I bet he would. I mean, I think it's quite difficult to not do well at Manchester City when you have some of the best in the world, and their owners want to spend as much money as possible. And quit the haircut, guys, distracting the fans. It's a land negotiation, but presently they can't afford the borrowing for such a development. They need confident investors. Well, that's another thing as well, that they said that it's going to be privately funded. Okay, so we're going to have to, well, privately funded, you still got to pay all that money back somehow, one way or another. And if it's going up another billion, that's a problem. How much is Anderson and Warren going to be, and who is better technically? I'd probably say Anderson is better because he can do both sides of the game, where Wharton is a bit more defensive. Um, Anderson's got better shot, way better shot on him. And Anderson can do both sides of the games, both sides of the game better than Warren. Warren's a bit more of a defensive player. And I don't know how much Warren is gonna necessarily go for, but none of these guys are gonna be cheap. I mean, then if you were to get either one for 60 million, I'd be quite astonished. I think if they probably all go for like 80, most likely, somewhere around there. See if I find this. I'm still looking for this thing. Axe. I don't know what to tell you, bro. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe you're just on YouTube's blacklist, Maybe you're just Okay, so here's the update, all right? Okay, maybe I remembered it wrong a bit, all right? Yeah, this is why. Yeah, this is actually, you can't say things like that. This is why you're getting censored, bro. You can't ask for people to get guillotined. Okay? I can't even say that. If somebody reports me for saying this, they could literally take the channel down for saying that. You are calling to violence to kill people, essentially. You cannot say that. And and then you're crying about censorship, bro. You cannot incite violence. Do you not understand that? Do you not understand how like things work? You could say fuck the Glazers all you want. You cannot ask for people to be killed. Yeah, you just did. I know you just did. Bro, Axe, I don't care, man. I'm not having that discussion. Not. Yeah, well, but he could get the channel in trouble for writing that as well because I'm responsible for what people say in the chat as well, and according to their guidelines, even if somebody comes in and says something and I have no control over their keyboard, if they write things that are against the guidelines and the policy, the channel can get in trouble for that as well. That's fine. If you hold that opinion, that's fine. But I don't agree with that, and I don't agree with that in any aspect of life. I don't care how bad somebody is or how evil they are. I don't play God. I don't take that into my own hands. But anyway, the update that I was getting to before I get sidetracked by just whatever. The cost of Manchester United's new 100,000-seater stadium stood at £2 billion when it was announced a year ago, but securing the land next to Old Trafford has become a major stumbling block, with insiders believing co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe would need an additional £1 billion to cover delays to building a new stadium. The club are understood to have offered around £50 million for the site, far below the £400 million valuation headed by owner Freightliner. And while the compulsory purchase order could ultimately determine the price, the process would still push the timeline back significantly, with work expected to take at least 10 years. So, this stadium, which work isn't even having begun, okay? So, it's not going to take 10 years from now. It's not going to be 2036. It could be maybe 2037, 2038, depending on when they sort this shit out and they actually start doing the work. When they start doing the work, the physical work, like the physical construction, it's going to take 10 years from then. So we're looking at a timeline right now of at least 12 plus years, in my opinion. And it could easily be 15 with the way things are going with this. So, um, so yeah, I mean, this whole thing with the stadium, I don't know, you know, they're going to have to try and keep us afloat for the next 12, 15 years. They're going to have to string us along. They're going to have to try and keep us in the Champions League for the next 10 plus years. I don't know how that's going to go for them. I honestly, part of me feels like we're gonna end up in some sort of just ultimate fucking shit show of a disaster. Um, because there's an aspect of me that just ultimately worries. Um, dang, bro, what is Instagram account info? What do you mean? X, you go do it. Go do it and let me know how that works out for you, okay? Go do it. I'm not doing shit and nobody else is doing shit. You are the radical psychopath, okay? The rest of us are normal people. We're not committing crimes and we're not going to commit murder, okay? And you're starting to piss me off now because I'm not, bro. We're trying to have a regular conversation and you just always go off on a tangent talking about some weird shit, okay? Dang, bro, what is Instagram account info? What do you mean? Instagram account info for who? For what? I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know what you're talking about. I told you you'd find out later. I told you not to worry about it. Okay. Breaking news. Fabrizio Romano. Barcelona have an agreement with Marcus Rashford. After next week, talks with United will take place to complete the deal. Man United are convinced they will. I hate how Fabrizio does this, but Manchester United are convinced they will get 80 million euros from the Højlund and Rashford deals. While it was reported we're getting 44.5 million euros for Rasmus Højlund. Okay. So we're getting 34.5 million for Marcus Rashford euros. He also followed this up by saying Barcelona want to sign Marcus Rashford permanently, but negotiations with United over the transfer fee are causing delays. Yeah, that's because they're fucking scumbags and they don't want to pay the money and they're fucking playing broke. Rashford has reportedly agreed to personal terms with Barca after a strong loan spell, but the clubs have not finalized the deal because Manchester United insists that Barcelona must pay the £26 million buy option, which we should, and they should. Hansi Flick wants Rashford to stay, yet the club is trying to negotiate a lower fee and possibly extend the loan instead of paying the full amount. No, and no, no, no. Pay the 26 million and fuck off, okay? No lower fee, no extension of the loan. Agree to nothing. All right. No, just no. So Deco has proposed a season-long loan for Marcus Rashford as one option. This would give FC Barcelona more time to pay the fee. I mean, this is just, it's so unbelievable, this fucking club. While still allowing Manchester United to receive the full valuation of the clause. United sources have consistently insisted that Barca must pay the 30 million euro option to buy if they want to make the move permanent. Club-to-club talks have currently stalled, with further discussions planned. That's coming from Ben Jacobs. Okay? Dude, I don't understand this football club. Bro. I don't understand Barcelona, bro. I don't even I wouldn't even have the capacity to do business with them because I would pick up the phone and I would tell them, if you don't pay the money, take your phone and shove it up your ass. Because do you understand what they're saying? They can't afford to pay about $5 million a year. We're not getting $30 million up front. It's amateurized. We're not getting £25 million up front. We're getting $5 million over the length of his contract. You can't afford $5 million a season? How is this football club still running? I really don't understand it. And I don't understand how this has become like our fucking problem as well. I don't get how this is our problem. Like, I don't understand how we end up in situations like this. Why does this only happen to us? Like, bro, we want him fucking sold so we can move on. Why are we stuck in a negotiation for a player that some of our fans anyway feel like we're selling really cheaply? And these guys agreed to the fee when they took him on loan. And now they want to pay less. I don't get it. I'm really tired of this saga, this story. This is another one that needs to end and never needs to be spoken about or thought about ever again. You know, just it's got to get done. It's just got to get done. I'm so fucking tired of it. I'm so tired of it. You know, this Rashford thing has been going on for way too long. Way too long. All right. 2 hours. I'm going to do Villa because tomorrow I'm not going to be able to stream. And then we got the match on Sunday. Okay? And no watch along, but we will do a Red Devil recap after the match. But tomorrow, no stream because I got things to do and I won't be available. So the thing is, like, he's not coming back though. Like, if we sell him, like, I mean, if we don't sell him to Barca, like, he's being sold somewhere else. But yeah, I just don't understand. I don't understand how we end up in a situation where these guys we're selling him for the fee we're selling him for. He does well there. He plays good, and these guys are crying about the fee. Just pay the fee and fuck off, man. Pay us the money for crying. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, just pay us the fucking money, dude. Like, you already agreed to it. It's not like we surprised you. You know, it's not even like, dude, I can understand maybe a standoff if we were like, if we were telling them, like, you know what, we changed our mind. You know, to get him, you got to pay us 50 million instead of 25. And they'd be like, whoa, what the hell? What do you mean? And then they're like, no, we're not paying that money. Like, bro, I could get that. You know, if you end up in some sort of argument like that, they're just like, yeah, I know we agreed to it, but we can't afford it. What the fuck did you agree to it for? You know, it was like one of my ex-girlfriends. All right? She bought a fucking, she bought a Jeep Wrangler, okay? Which is not a cheap car, okay? It's about, they go, now they probably go for more, but at the time, you know, it was sort of a new one. They go for $70,000-$80,000. Okay, she couldn't afford that car, but she fucking bought it. All right, she bought it. She was making payments on it, plus the insurance. She was paying like $600 to $700 a month, and she told me, I was like, "Are you out of your mind?" I was like, how did you possibly think she had to sell the car because she literally couldn't afford it. How did you think you were possibly going to retain that vehicle? You don't make enough money to pay $600 to $700 a month for a car. And she's like, oh, I don't know, I just wanted it. Barcelona is like my ex-girlfriend. Oh, no, I just wanted Marcus. We couldn't afford him, but we can't afford him because we're dead broke. But we like him and we want him. Doesn't really work like that in any aspect of life. You got the money for it, get it. You don't got the money for it, then sorry. You know, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. But all right, real quick. All right, because we don't have a lot of time. Manchester United, Aston Villa. Quick little preview. Quick little look. I think Carrick gave us some updates as well, which I need to get to because I sort of lost those in translation somewhere. I think he did do Carrick on Sancho, Carrick on Rogers, Carrick on Scholes, Carrick on team update. Okay, that's what I was looking for here. Carrick on this week. All right. So, real quick. All right. Thank everybody that smashed the like button, by the way. Greatly appreciate it. All right. So, in terms of form, we're obviously sort of in the better form. But, you know, we got 3 wins, a draw, and a loss in our last 5. Villa have 2 draws, a win, and 2 losses in their last 5. Okay. Last 10 head-to-head matches, we've won 5. We've drawn 3 times, and Villa have won twice. So we're a little bit favorable there historically. Okay. Our sort of averaging best performing player has been Casemiro to a certain degree, statistically, I guess. And Ollie Watkins has been theirs. Okay. Lineups. All right. I mean, well, hold on. Let's see what Carrick said first on players returning. Okay, so Carrick on team update, he said Mason is back with the group, which is fantastic. He's an important player for us, Mason, and to have him back and involved is a good step for us. So that's good and positive. Okay, we're getting one guy back. He's not 100% in terms of back, but he's only trained a very small amount of time. But he's back, and that's good for us. So we'll see whether he's involved or not on Sunday. Okay, well, that just kind of took a little bit of a downturn. But it's a big step for him, so we're happy with that. Yeah, that's it in terms of players coming back for now. Which is not a very encouraging update, because that means that no signs of Matthijs de Ligt and no signs of Lisandro Martinez. And I did read an update somewhere that Lisandro Martinez and Matthijs de Ligt were not seen in training during the midweek, so they will not be involved yet again. So, yeah, but I think Luke Shaw is all right. Okay, and everybody else is fine. So, based off of that, Delo right back, Lemons in goal, of course. Probably Euro and Maguire, I would expect. Heaven doesn't seem to be getting in ahead of either one of them. Luke Shaw at left back. Casemiro and Maino are going to be in the midfield again. And then it's going to be a bit interesting. I kind of feel like he's going to go with Mbeumo again. And he's going to go with Bruno. And he's going to go with Cunha. He might drop Sesko, though. I think if he makes a change, and a lot of people were saying that they want Diallo back in. I mean, Diallo, sorry. They want Diallo back in. And they would bring in Diallo and start him over in Mbeumo and leave Sesko starting up top. And I just feel like I don't think that's going to happen. So, I think if a change is going to happen, I think he's going to go back to putting Mbeumo up top, and he'll put Diallo back in the team, and he'll put Sesko back to the bench and have him come on as a sub. I think that's probably what's going to happen. I would not be opposed, though, and I would be thinking about it, definitely. And I would be strongly considering it. Obviously, you know, got to evaluate them in training. So, but where I stand right now is I would be looking maybe to putting in Diallo and letting Mbeumo stay out. because my philosophy is play the best performing players. And I don't think Diallo necessarily did anything that deserved for him to sort of lose his spot. I think some of it was a bit tactical in terms of you play Newcastle, they're a physical team, and Buemo's more physical than Diallo. Cunha is the more physical player. Ben, you would say, is a more physical player, definitely a bigger, taller player. Even like Everton or West Ham, they're more physical sides than technical sides. So you need the physical players. But Mbeumo didn't play good at all. And I think Diallo, when he came on, he did good. And he did good in the last game. And so I'd go with Diallo and give him a shot. And I think Ben should still get an opportunity because I think one match, something not happening, I don't think necessarily warrants that you just then lose your spot because you don't score a goal or whatever. So, Bring On United says, oi, oi, how we all doing? We're all right, we're good. Villa on Sunday, one hell of a game, Champions League decider potentially, and looking like Mount is back, which is great. Also said Martinez had a knock in training, so they said midweek that he would be out of this weekend due to a setback, of course. Considering Ahmad's food pattern. Oh, because of his fasting. Yeah, but I don't know. He should still be able to play. Those players play. I mean, there's tons of players that do the fasting. And they play. So why can't Ahmad do it? Villa have a lot of tall defenders. With them playing a 4-2-3-1 system, they will need to attack on the wings to help spread the play. You'll need height, and with Villa, so I think get Sesko on. Yeah, I sort of think the same. I mean, if I'm thinking back to the first match we played them, okay, and the way Emery had them up, I mean, they were definitely set up. I mean, they were home, and they were definitely set up to counterattack, and they weren't even really, there was sort of large parts where they weren't even trying to necessarily control the game in that way. They were more than happy to just kind of drop back, let us give away possession, and then hit us on the counter. So, I don't think doing the Emblemo thing at striker may work. Because I think the Emblemo thing works if there's space in behind. And the teams push up quite high, and we can send balls over to the top. But I don't really feel like Villa is going to give us that much of an opportunity to do such a thing. And they do have kind of tall defenders, and I do think we need somebody to be able to hold the ball up. And also, I think we need somebody to be able to compete in the box. Because again, I would like to see more crosses more often into the box. I feel like we don't do it enough, and so we become quite predictable because then we just try to basically go through the middle and cut them open through the middle. And when you're in the game and you get a sense that, like, all right, they're not really crossing a lot, and they're basically just trying to come through our middle, and they're trying to do, little 1-2 touch passes on the edge of our box, find some space, and, like, get the ball into a position. Well, the game becomes a lot more easier to read, but it also becomes a lot more comfortable because you just know, just focus everything basically on the center, block up the center, and don't really worry about the wings because they ain't really crossing the ball too much, and nothing's really happening. They're not getting to the byline and getting into the box from the wings. So I think we need to utilize that a little bit more. We haven't done so in some of the matches. I think we need to we need to mix it up a bit more. You know, the past like 3 games or so, there was a lot of times where we just like, you know, we were trying to go through the middle of the team, and it wasn't really working for us. Okay, the goal that we scored, that Sesko scored from Bruno, well, that came from the wing, and that came from Bruno literally launching the fucking ball into the box from like 35 yards out. We should do that more. He's 6 foot. He's 6'5". Yeah, okay, maybe the opposition have tall defenders. Maybe they're good in there, but give them something. Make it a bit more challenging for them. In that, have them worry about the crosses and going through the middle of the team. Don't just be so, I guess, one-directional about it, which I kind of feel like that's what we've been. And then we need to mix it up a little bit more. We've been a bit too predictable. So, some stats, okay? 6 out of the 8 last matches Villa have played, there's been less than 3 goals, so not a lot of goals going on there, okay? 5 out of the 7 last matches for United, both teams have scored a goal, at least a goal, all right? 5 out of the 7 last matches that Villa have played, they have scored the first goal, okay? And there's nothing really head-to-head in terms of streaks, just corners, under corners. Obviously, when we played them back in December, we lost 2-1. Felt quite aggrieved by that, okay? Because I felt like, we basically lost to fucking Morgan Rogers and only Morgan Rogers. And we had an opportunity to go win there. And I felt like we could have done so if we pushed on to do it, but we didn't. And we literally lost to one player. So, we are looking for revenge. And this is going to be a big game. And it is a 6-pointer. As people have pointed out, okay? Carrick also had a couple things to say. He said on Rogers' forum, he said, it's fantastic for me to see Morgan going on and do so well, and he's done it for a good period of time now. And he had the initial signing in January. I wasn't really sure how it was going to go. It was a step for him. I hadn't really played for an awful long time in Middlesbrough, really, so I naturally felt probably he could have done a little bit more. But as soon as he's gone, Aston Villa, he's taking huge steps and quickly. He's taking huge steps quickly, and being a major part of the team and part of the England team, it just shows how well he's done. We could always see what he was possibly going to be capable of, and the potential there in terms of what he could do, his attributes. The way he carries the ball, plays off his left foot, plays off his right foot, creates, scores goals, and really good athletically. And yeah, that's right, because he was at Middlesbrough. Carrick was asked about Sancho, but don't really give a shit about that. Carrick was asked about on his tenure. He says it's always about what's next, what you're going to react, whether you've won, whether or not you've drawn, what's going to be the reaction, what's the group, what are the emotions in it, how do we make the best of it, and what is the motivation for the next game and driving that forward. I understand with it being the first defeat, if you like, it feels a little bit different, but it's going to come at some point. You look through the league, it's a tough league. Most teams, if not every team, has suffered that in recent times, so it's putting things in perspective, really, and kind of putting it in shape where we know where we can improve, what we can do better, where we're taking a lot of confidence from as a group, and what we can and what we show we can achieve and how we can play. So it has been really good. It has been a really good week in many ways, and excited. It's an important game. There's no getting away from it. It is there. There's an awful lot to play for, so I'm fully embracing the situation at the moment and looking forward to the next game. And all I got to say to that is absolutely. And let's see it on the pitch, though. Because, I'm not having a dig at Michael. Okay? Just my sort of philosophy of things. Okay? Words are cheap. And you could say all you want, but the performance better fucking be there. So it's sort of a big thing. Okay, we suffered a loss. He talked about, what's sort of going to be the response. That's sort of been the discussion in the fan base. It's sort of a talking point. It's sort of a looking point. Many people have been discussing this. I'm interested in it, and I want to see how we're going to respond, and what the performance is going to be. But this is sort of it. This is sort of how it is. You live or die. This is football. And we are here. We are in a position. We are in. We're facing a match once again that could have big determining factors for the season. It's another challenge. Okay. We failed a few. We've passed a couple this season, and we're facing down the barrel on another one. So we're either going to get the job done or we're going to fail. So let's see what it's about, and then we will get our answers. All right, we'll see you later, Ax. And stop accusing us of censoring you. We're not censoring you. Stop doing that. Stop spreading fake news. So yeah. By the way, let me look at Villa's team. Yeah. They got any injuries? They got anybody missing out? It's gonna be an interesting game because it's gonna be a 4-2-3-1 versus a 4-2-3-1. Could cancel each other out. I feel like maybe a draw is coming up. I'm gonna be quite honest. I feel like a draw could be coming up. They do have a decently amount of players that may not be available or are not going to, Jadon Sancho obviously can't play because he's on loan and cannot play against us, so he's automatically out. Harvey Elliott, doubtful. Don't know if he's going to play. Matty Cash, doubtful. Boubacar Kamara is listed as out. John McGinn is listed as doubtful, so I don't know if he's going to play. Andres Garcia and Yuri Tillsman both out. So they are missing some players, but I mean, they do still have, a decent amount. Maybe Matty Cash will play, but, Martinez, Konza, Mings, Matheson, Onana, Louise, Buendia, Rogers, Bailey, and Ali Watkins will probably be the lineup they go with. So it's going to be interesting to see the midfield battle as well. All right. Onana, I rate him. Very good player. Okay. Not our Onana, their Onana. Physical specimen, beast type of player. Okay. So we're going to see, we got to see how we handle that. Gonna be interesting. So, but listen, we do got to get out of here. Okay. We got things we got to take care of. All right. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for supporting. If you subscribed, if you're new, welcome and thank you. Make sure you turn on notifications. Thank you everybody that smashed the like button. Greatly appreciate it. And we will be live for the Red Devil recap after the match versus Villa is over. Okay. We will be live to recap the match, discuss how the match went. Give our thoughts and opinions, ratings, etc., etc. So everybody enjoy the rest of your Friday. Have a good Saturday as well. Have a good evening, good night, or good morning if it's morning for you. Just take care, be safe, and we will see you on Sunday after the match. All right.